this whiteness in their commercial for like,
Like,
oh, summer.
I haven't seen the sun in
No,
years kind of
no,
look.
you're not gonna pick me.
You may want to consider sitting outside a little bit more, soak in
Not worth
some
it.
rays,
Not worth it.
get that tan.
Preserving my vampireness. Everyone will envy me when I'm like 50 years old. They'll be like, "Oh my God, you've looked the same for 20 years." Like, I know.
I owe it all to my portrait.
Yes. Which you can't look at. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome to the book club for movies. What was that? I'm talking about an audition I got. And I'm just saying how they're not going to pick me because I'm so white.
Like, because she's supposed to be like at a resort around a pool, and she's like, well, I don't know how well it sells your pool fantasy if like the people around the pool look like they've never been in the sun. They may want somebody who's built up a bit more of a tan for the pool part of the commercial. But I told Amy, just go in the backyard and so you're in a place that gets a lot of sun.
I know.
Go out and get that one good sunburn you need to get a tan for the.
I used to lay out, and I actually am capable of tanning.
You can do it. I have faith.
I'm playing the long game here.
You're like, I'm preserving my skin. The more I sit out in the sun, the more it will age me.
Yeah, I am channeling Nicole Kidman, Rachel Weisz, Kate Blanchett. All these
you just need some Indian heritage.
But hello, everyone. Welcome to the Book Club for Movies. It is Tuesday, April 20th, which is a holiday for some people.
Well, it's a lot of things. There's a lot of things on this day. It's anniversaries of horrible things, birthdays of
horrible people.
One of my best friends, also birthdays of horrible people as well. It's a loaded day for many reasons, but we are obviously here to talk about movies.
Yeah, and tomorrow is the 5-year anniversary of Prince's passing. So I will definitely be decked out in all Prince things. Last year, doing the book club for movies, I did Purple Rain on this day. I think I made him. Actually, I think it was on a Wednesday too, or Tuesday. Anyway, whatever it was, I just made it about Prince. I didn't follow my usual thing. So we're having a Prince day, but tomorrow we are not having a Prince day. But I will be wearing Prince things because it makes me happy. Yeah, so today we will be talking about two-time Oscar winner for one movie, Ron Howard. Before that, let's talk about yesterday's Man Crush Monday, Frederick March, and his one of 2 Oscars that he won for Best Actor was for Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in 1931. I'd never seen this. He was great. I wasn't wild about the film as a whole compared to some other older movies we've watched. It did just kind of feel like an old movie. However, there were some really standout things and interesting things like the many shots shot in like the POV of him. There was a lot of things technically about it that I thought was pretty amazing in 1931, especially since, sound had only been around for a couple years, and just looking at what they were able to do with camera movement after that. Thank you, Tim, for enjoying my eyeshadow yesterday.
But yes, it is an impressive technical achievement because it's not rare that you see the camera move this much in a lot of these early sound pictures, because usually there's microphones sort of planted and stationary objects, and actors would have to arrange themselves. They would have to be posed around these these hidden microphones so that it could record the sound. So like the movement of movies just kind of died for a little while. And Ruben Mamoulian was a much more technically innovative director, so he found all these interesting ways to keep the actors and the camera moving. And really, the central performance it's really astonishing to me, because I'd forgotten just how much movement Frederick March does as, Mr. Hyde. Because you see him as this, he's like the very picture of like the cultivated, modern educated man. He's very much, this is like the evolved man. He's handsome, he's passionate, he's a little bit weird, but you didn't realize how bad that was going to get. But so the contrast between him and sort of like this caveman version that's all instinct and impulse and no control, but it's also like it's sort of the collection of everything, every desire you want, unrestrained. It's not just going back to caveman. And when he's as that character, like the transformation is not just makeup, it is complete. Like he is jumping, he's flying, he's running around. Like this looks like such a physically exhausting role.
Everything. There was something, and this isn't really the movie's fault. It's just like the general subject matter. But I really hated that. It was just like, okay, so like he just wants to get laid, and then this is what this turns into. And he turns into this monster. And I thought it was interesting how, and I always bring up the Joker movie. But I thought it was interesting because Samir has not watched that movie because he has some strong opinions about like kind of like the toxic masculinity that's involved in that. And this to me is like a different side of that. And this is the part where like I could watch Joker and kind of like understand some of the things in it, and then I watch this and I'm like, there's just no excuse for this behavior.
But that's the point. There is no excuse for the behavior.
Well, I know.
It's also not necessarily
as a woman watching this movie and like,
I don't think it's just because he wanted to have sex, because he doesn't really, from what we gather from the interactions, there's some element of sex happening there, but like Mr. Hyde is like he's genuinely a sadist. So this is like not just a person who wants to get laid and this is what happens because he can't get laid. This is like actually exploring the dark side that lives within every person and assuming the worst about every human being. It's a very dark story because it assumes that every human being possesses this level of darkness in them, and it's only sort of your own ability as a person to control that. So there's that plot about you just have to keep waiting, you just have to keep waiting, you just have to keep waiting, it'll be fine, just keep waiting. We waited, and and he's obviously neither of them want to wait. And so this idea of being able to control yourself is like very prevalent throughout this story. And it's like, well, there's obviously you kind of fall more on the side of the doctor because you're like, okay, these people are very antiquated and conservative. And, obviously like some of the things that they think and say is just ridiculous. Oh, you have to wait to get married after you've waited, 2 years, they think they said already or something. It's like, well, why do we have to do that exactly? Because reasons, like that doesn't make any sense. But at the same time, you're like, well, you know what? Maybe a little bit of self-control would not go amiss here. But then, of course, he's like incapable of doing that once he's taken this drug. And then once that drug is in his system, it's like he's already created this division of the good and the bad soul and made it possible for it to come out whether or not you're taking that potion that he's created. There are other versions of this movie. One with Anthony Perkins made in the late 80s called Edge of Sanity, where it was like a freebasing thing where he accidentally inhales like some drug that like he mistakenly creates in his lab, and he inhales the fumes from it when things kind of go haywire, and then he turns into this monstrous version of himself. And then it becomes almost a story about what the kind of person you become as an addict, and all the horrible things that it compels you to do to other people to support your addiction. So there's still a little bit of that in this story, I think. But no, I still really like it. I think there's a lot of, I love his laboratory. I love all the sets they built. I love Miriam Hopkins also in this movie. It's really sad when I watch a movie like this too. I'm like, why does she have a bad rap with people? Like I'm going through more and more of these old films that she happens to be in. I was like, she's great in all these movies. Like, I think that her performance, like you're genuinely terrified of this character. Not just because of his performance, but also because of hers, because she seems genuinely on edge and like terrified when he's around.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think she gives a standout performance in this movie too. It's a shame she doesn't have awards to her name as well as him. But I was very, very surprised. I had not seen this movie in years. I was really surprised by Frederick March's like his nimbleness and his and like just the physicality of the performance. Like, and the voice too, the voice change, because usually those kinds of voice changes, you're like, okay, is this gonna be like Christian Bale in Batman, or is this gonna work? But I didn't recognize his voice at all in his high voice.
I mean, clearly there's a big difference in him physically with the makeup, but I feel like he could have done this just as convincingly without that drastic makeup. Like, if only we could have seen, him doing that same performance, I'm sure he still would have completely transformed everything about himself. Yeah, he was really great. It was so fun to, again, he's an actor who I'm not super familiar with. And it was nice to see or really his first Oscar. Again, this was only a few years after he started acting in films. He wins an Oscar, so good for him.
Yeah, I loved him. Like, I actually bought this digitally because again, it's another one where it was like $3.99 to rent and $5.99 to buy, and I'm like, well, I'm just gonna buy this because I loved the the weird touches that Ruben Mamoulian adds to it, like the sort of almost like the pillow talk screen, but it's almost like the hand of a clock moving forwards and backwards to show the sort of duality of like the two worlds, like the low world with the performer and the upper crust world with his fiance, but also like things like that extra long dissolve when she's like, "You'll come back to me, come back," and it's like the camera panning down to her bare leg swinging back and forth. But that long dissolve as they're walking over, like it goes on longer than you think it will. So it really gives you the idea of this having made an imprint on his mind. And it's going to be something that stays with him, which is why Hyde, when he wants to express all these things that have been repressed inside of Jekyll, he goes to that place. It sort of sets that up really well, but it's a little bit of film style that helps you understand that, and then it makes it make sense later that he goes to that same person. I loved it. It's going to be fun to sort of break this movie down a little bit more here and there. See what other, obviously the transformation later on was just like a series of plain dissolves, but the first one is like all in a mirror, and it's like purely his performance, but also you're seeing like the makeup sort of come in gradually. And I forgot how they created that optical illusion to get that shot, but it was like, why didn't they keep doing that? I'm like, oh, it's probably really expensive and time consuming. So they were like, we got one of these guys, we're going to use it for this moment. The first time he changes, the rest of the time, just lap dissolves. That's what we're doing. But yeah, I'm glad I bought this. It's going to be great to have and show to other people.
It's available. I think, it was like $2.99 to rent. I think $1 or $2 more, you could go ahead and buy it. But please check this out. But let's move on to Name That Movie. So go ahead and guess what the movie is based on the images. We will do 2 as usual. Here we go.
Oh, I think I know what this is.
Yeah, you're definitely going to know what this is.
I definitely know what this is. On the first one, I was like, oh, I recognize that nimble, wiry frame and the pattern on the luggage. I'm surprised it's in this book. I guess it shouldn't be, but I felt like it was going to all be like old classics in this book for some reason.
No, there's some newer ones. And this next one's a dead giveaway, I think.
I felt like the second image definitely was also a big giveaway for people who may not have known it from the very first one like I did. But not sure many people, hopefully somebody will remember it.
Do we have any comments? Pineapple Express.
No.
Nope.
I love that. I always love that sign. Western style to make the Western tourists feel comfortable on the train.
All right. Do we have any other guesses here?
I know what it is.
I know you know what it is.
Come on.
Want to go ahead and say it?
The Darjeeling Limited.
The Wes Anderson film. All right, one more. I think this one's a giveaway too on the first image. As is that one. and this one, really. This one's easy, guys.
It should be easy.
Where the don't know why I came in the night. I get the feeling something ain't right. I'm just scared me to run up and down. And won't never get downstairs. Now you let me joke to ride.
We got it.
In the middle with you. Yes, Reservoir Dogs.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah, I was like, please get this one. Ooh, tomorrow's is going to be so easy. Yeah. Alrighty. Moving on. Today's Director Tuesday is on Mr. Ron Howard, a guy who's been around in the industry since a wee little redheaded child of Ron Howard. His mom and dad were in the industry. His mom was an actress. Dad was a writer, director. I'm not sure exactly how successful they were or famous, but certainly I think they were able to make a living out of it. He was born on March 1st, 1954 in Duncan, Oklahoma. And his family moved out to LA when he was little. And he eventually was on the TV show, The Andy Griffith Show, for many, many years. Yeah, he was the little kid on this for I think every single season of that show. He was on a few other things too, but this was definitely what he was known for. Continued to act when he was a teenager. Of course, in 1973, he was in American Graffiti. And then came Happy Days, another one of his most famous roles. He was on that for a few years, but at that time he was already starting to become more interested in directing. He says that he was always interested in directing, even as a child. He's someone who grew up on film sets. And I always tend to enjoy directors who have acting experience as well. I think it really helps as an actor to be talking with someone who kind of knows what they're talking about in that particular sense. His first film that he directed was Grand Theft Auto in 1977. He left Happy Days to direct some TV movies for NBC between 1978 and 1982. In 1982, he did the film The Night Shift, or just Night Shift, and that was a fairly successful film with Michael Keaton, Shelley Long, and Henry Winkler. And he has acted in a couple little things, especially in the 80s, but Happy Days was certainly his last major acting role.
Acting work.
Other things he's done in the 80s, he did Splash, Cocoon, Willow, Parenthood. Like, he was already getting and Parenthood was actually nominated for a couple Oscars even. 1990, he did Backdraft. I mean, some of these, like, it's pretty much guaranteed that you have seen a Ron Howard movie. If you have any...
Yeah, he makes movies that are very easy to digest, and Hollywood loves to give money to produce them. He gets big stars, he gives them enough latitude to, like, obviously, I guess if you're putting Steve Martin in a movie, how much direction are you going to give Steve Martin in his comic performance? Usually people want Steve Martin for his energy. So he's smart enough to let those people do their thing and knows that that's what's going to pull people into the theater. So he has a good eye for talent. I will give him that.
He does. One of his big hits from the 90s, of course, was Apollo 13, which was nominated for many Oscars. He was shockingly not nominated for Best Director, though. With how many other Oscars that was nominated for. That's always been one of my favorites. How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Samir's all-time favorite Christmas movie.
The animated one I love.
In 2001, he directed A Beautiful Mind, which is the movie that we picked for today. And of course, that we'll talk about the Oscars it won, but he won Best Director. Cinderella Man, The Da Vinci Code, Frost Nixon, Angels and Demons, Rush. He's done documentaries. He did a Beatles documentary called 8 Days a Week. He's done some TV series too. His most recent film that came out was Hillbilly Elegy.
Well, that's the one that Glenn Close is nominated for, isn't it?
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I heard that people thought it was ridiculous, but it was nominated for some things. Oh yes, he did also direct Solo, A Star Wars Story. He has a lot of projects coming out. There's going to be a TV series of Willow, the fantasy film from the 80s. He's filming a movie called 13 Lives, and he has 3 other things that are announced right now: The Girl Before, The Fixer, and Seven Eves. He also is a big producer. He and Brian Grazer co-founded Imagine Pictures, or Imagine Studios for exactly what it's called. So big producer. He's got 115 producing credits.
It's a busy man.
Yeah, producer, executive producer, of course, the father of actress Bryce Dallas Howard, who is a famous actress in her own right. He's been married to the same woman since the 70s. They have a few kids together. So nice little happy life that he has.
Yes, he had the benefit of being loved by almost everybody who ever watched the Andy Griffith Show. Because he was such a sweet and adorable little kid. And then, of course, the next big TV show he does is Happy Days, which was another enormous hit. And, of course, that shows the reason for the expression jump the shark, because that show's popularity really dipped after, they were kind of at the cusp of their, we've been successful for a while, we can do anything. And they invented some episode where I think the Fonz or somebody surfing and literally jumps over a shark as part of the story. And it's it became symbolic of this, this is when the show didn't realize that it was too full of itself to see itself clearly.
I've never been a fan of Happy Days, what I've seen of it.
Hey.
Yeah, Luke, the backdraft, it wasn't really a ride, it was more of an experience. That thing was cool.
I remember that.
It was intense. Flames in your face.
Could have gone very wrong, but somehow it never did while I was there.
No, it's really Samir's name's not here. I don't think it's there anymore, but I used to have a system when I go to Universal Studios where I'd go on Jurassic Park, I'd get soaked, and then I'd go on Backdraft and dry off from the flames, and I would get back on Jurassic Park, and I would do that back.
Jurassic Park is always closed for renovation when I'm at every single time I've been to Universal Studios. It's always been closed every time.
Ron Howard also in recent years has, I don't know if he's on MasterClass, but he has taught directing. I'm not sure what the details are on that. He has 2 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, one for TV and one for film. One of only a few people that has 2 stars for different mediums on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He's won the humanitarian awards. Yeah. Cool dude. Let's talk about A Beautiful Mind. This is one of my favorites. I was really excited for us to include this on the calendar. I have loved this movie pretty much since it came out. This came out in 2001. Winner of Best Picture, Best Supporting Actress, Best Director, of course, and Best Adapted Screenplay. Also nominated for Best Actor in a Leading Role, Best Film Editing, Best Makeup, and Best Original Score by James Horner. I'm of the opinion that Russell Crowe should have won Best Actor this year. He had won the previous year for Gladiator, and this was the year that Denzel Washington won. But a lot of people think that Denzel Washington should have won a few years. I don't know. I just feel like there were a couple awards in that few years that I just wish were kind of swapped around. But, have no control over that. And, Russell Crowe was just phenomenal in this movie. After John Nash, a brilliant but asocial mathematician, accepts secret work in cryptography, his life takes a turn for the nightmarish. Based on actual events by the former famous mathematician John Nash. He and his wife, they died a few years ago in a car crash. They weren't wearing their seatbelts. Wear your seatbelts, people, even if you're old.
Well, when you watch old episodes of Mad Men, you see like Don Draper with a cocktail in his hand and no seatbelt on while he's driving. And you're like, oh, God. Was this normal? Like, you forget that it was just normal until Ralph Nader made a big stink about seatbelts. Thank you, Ralph. People don't really know how much he provided us. Not enough people ever voted for him to make the Green Party a real contender in elections. However, he was a longtime advocate of things like that. So there's going to be a lot of interest. I think it's just a built-in thing. It's sad. It's very sad that that's how it ended for them after their very complicated life together. And as we'll see some version of in this movie.
This movie has an all-star cast of course, Russell Crowe, Jennifer Connelly, Ed Harris, Christopher Plummer, Paul Bettany, Adam Goldberg, Josh Lucas, Anthony Rapp. I remember there was a funny thing. I don't know if this was on my DVD special features of this, but for those who have seen this movie, the scene where he goes up to some woman and he basically is, I don't know, she ends up slapping him. I don't want to go into too many details if you haven't seen it, but I guess when they were auditioning women for that role, I guess like the people higher up, they actually got to audition with Russell Crowe, which is, I think, kind of rare for kind of a minor role. I mean, still had some speaking lines, but this one actress, I guess she actually slapped him in the audition, and Russell Crowe was not happy about it.
Oh, because he's such a tough guy,
I know. Yes, Jennifer Connelly won Best Supporting Actress for this. I'm curious to see what Samir thinks of her performance, because off the air, he has told me that he's not the biggest fan of her. I think she's great in this. I think
or Russell Crowe for that matter.
Yeah, but yes, there are a lot of things with this movie that this was my pick. Let's just put it that way. I love this movie. This movie always makes me cry at the end, like happy tears. Again, it's those feelings of love that get me. But I'm just really looking forward to watching this again. I used to watch this movie so much in middle school randomly. Yeah. This movie is available on Peacock, which is
interesting.
Yeah, so of course I already own this movie. But it is available on Peacock.
Which I think don't you have to join that, or can you log in if you have a cable subscription or something?
I think
or can you watch things for free on it with that?
I think you have to create an account. This should be on Peacock for free, which means that it might have ads.
It will have ads.
Yeah, but it is free. Otherwise, I'm sure you could rent it somewhere for a few bucks if your time is worth a few dollars and not sitting through ads. But I don't think it's part of the Peacock Premium, unless if you have Peacock Premium, then I would assume you're watching it without ads at that point if you're paying to use the app. But yes, please enjoy Beautiful Mind. I am just really looking forward to watching this evening. Tomorrow, of course, we will be discussing A Beautiful Mind after the movie, and then moving on to two-time Oscar winner Vivien Leigh. She only won 2, right? Gone with the Wind.
She won 2, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, super excited to talk about Vivien Leigh, one of our favorites. She's someone, it's kind of amazing that we haven't had a day about her yet. Yeah, but we'll have a little Streetcar Named Desire tomorrow, a Hollywood classic, a play classic, a film classic, Marlon Brando, Vivien Leigh, the whole shebang. It's going to be dramatic, and we're going to love every minute of it. Please check out our Patreon over in the comments. We are grateful to be live for not shutting us off today.
Right?
Mid-show. Always a plus. But thank you guys for watching today. Hope you enjoy A Beautiful Mind. Get your tissues ready when you watch this, maybe. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Happy 420 for those who enjoy 420.